Life is hard, wouldn't you agree? From a very young age, I knew that life was difficult. I would often ask, why is the Wi-Fi so slow? Why doesn't school have AC? Well, I guess objectively speaking, my life wasn't that hard. That's why for most of my life, it was hard for me to really relate to others when people went through a true hardship. There's a book in the Bible, the book of Job, that talks extensively about human suffering and the age-old predicament. If God is good, why is there so much pain in the world? The book talks about Job, who was a good, God-fearing man. Job lived a comfortable life with many children, and every day he worshiped God. One day, the devil Satan tells God that Job only believed in God because Job had a good life. Satan wanted to prove to God that Job would lose his faith if Job's life was destroyed. As such, Satan destroys Job's property, kills his children, and curses Job with great illness. Job suffers so much pain that he begins to lament his birth. In pain, Job declares that on the day of his birth, he should have been destroyed by darkness, forgotten by God, so that he would never have to suffer. Job begins to question God as he asks why God would allow such horrible things to happen to him. Job begins to realize that he was born into a world of darkness. When I first heard about Job's story, I couldn't really relate. After all, as I've mentioned earlier, I've never experienced anything that was even remotely as hard as what Job went through. It wasn't until towards the end of 2020 did I begin to understand what the book of Job was all about. When I was told that a close friend of mine was diagnosed with stage 2 cancer. Towards the end of 2020, a close friend of mine was diagnosed with stage 2 cancer. In 2021, she and her husband had to fight through one hardship after another, only to simply keep her alive. There were bills to pay for chemotherapy. There were bills to pay for the treatment of the complications that developed as a result of chemotherapy. And these were all in addition to the already mentally debilitating anxiety, fear, and prospect of death that cancer necessarily entails. Soon after the diagnosis, I visited my friend to give my condolences. I remember how heavy my legs felt as I walked up the flight of stairs to their apartment, the apprehension that I felt, knowing that I was about to see my warm and caring friend with cancer. I genuinely didn't know what to expect. Would she be bitter? Would she be in pain? Did she have hope? What about her husband? All of my fears were put to rest when I finally saw her smiling warmly as I entered their apartment. She was eager to know how my new job was, what scripts I had written for my next speech, and if my sister was planning to go back to the US soon. The conversation centered around me, even though I was the one who was supposed to be delivering condolences. It wasn't until I brought up the topic of cancer was I then told about the next steps that they had to take, or how she felt about the entire situation. When I told the couple how worried I felt for them, the husband simply told me that one step at a time, God would provide. Despite the threat of cancer looming over them, they continued to serve the community. They continued to pray for others in need. They continued to provide for those who were in need. Towards the end of the book of Job, God talks directly to Job, telling Job that despite all that had happened to him, God was in control. All Job needed to do was to trust in God. Job never was able to understand why there was so much pain in the world. And God never promised Job that his situation would become any better. But quite frankly, it didn't matter. Despite this, in the end, Job decided to continue trusting in God, and he had peace in his heart knowing that God would take care of him. Even though Job was born into a world of darkness, in the end, God's light shined through him. Many of you can probably tell that the friends I was just talking about were Paul and Queenie. Unfortunately, they are unable to be with us tonight, but I wanted them and all of you to know that to me, Paul and Queenie are examples of Job in real life. We were all born into a world full of pain. Maybe there were times when Queenie and Paul felt as though they were surrounded by darkness. Maybe there were times when they even questioned God. But in the end, I'm thankful to them both for having been such a blessing, not only to me, but so many people around us. The courage that they've shown to me, the kindness that they've continued to provide all of those around us, and their faith in God, even in pain, every time I am with them, I feel as if God's light is shining through them. It always makes me feel love, joyful, and in peace. We were born into darkness, but we're also born to shine. I can't help but feel that this is, in fact, the spirit of this club. In our lives, we face all kinds of hardship. Life can be difficult from so many aspects. Yet despite this, every 2 weeks, we still meet on Friday nights, chatting, laughing, delivering speeches, and praying together. Every time I come to these meetings, I feel jaded and stressed. But every time I leave, I wish that the meetings could be longer. We were all born into darkness, but we were all born to shine. At the end of this term, I hope that our club will shine for another year. Life is hard, and being an officer will be hard too at times. There will be times of disagreement, times when we bicker among ourselves, and times when people won't respond to texts when help is needed. But I hope that despite all of this, like Job, like Paul and Queenie, we will continue to trust that all is in God's control. We were born into darkness, but we were also born to shine. Alas, I want to toast my fellow Toastmasters. Thank you for a wonderful year, and here's to another year of shining through the darkness. Back to the TME.